the the drive came from sort of the challenging the status quo, which I think literally has led me to where I am today, which is I, I learned very young. A lot of people just accept what they're told.
Darren Smith is a passionate and driven individual, and as head of transformation, he leads initiatives that unlock growth, drive innovation, and deliver sustainable impact.
Pushing ourselves out of our comfort zones a bit really can open your eyes to things that you maybe weren't aware of.
He is actively working to change lives and has a mission to lift more than 1 million people out of poverty. I can't wait to welcome Darren Smith to Time to Speak. Would you have changed anything about your young life leading up to the age of 17? Time to Speak is a space to pause, think and talk about the power of voice and the art of human connection. Through open conversation with leaders and changemakers, we explore how voice, presence and authentic connection shapes who we are, how we lead, and the impact we make in our work and lives. Welcome to Time to Speak. Darren Smith, welcome to Time to Speak.
Hi Audrey, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's always good to see you. How are you feeling today?
Yes, really good actually. I had acupuncture this morning, so I always feel great after acupuncture. So yes.
Oh, do you have it regularly?
I do. I have it once a month. I started having it during COVID. Well, we're diving straight into this now. Before we even started, I ended up getting burnt out during COVID. Work was quite crazy, just to the extreme. And then it was kind of one of my recovery methods. I heard about acupuncture, started sort of researching it, and yeah, had it then, and then I just do it once a month now, almost as a keeping me level and grounded and steady.
That's really cool, because I didn't know that you could use acupuncture in that way to help with something like burnout, because I've used it before for myself, but it's usually to repair muscles or release pain or tension from a certain area. But that sounds really cool.
It helps me a lot. I mean, you'll know this because we've obviously worked together recently, but I've got crazy energy, so I'm
Yeah.
quite a crazy sort of. My mind never switches off. So actually, it changes every time I have it. Sometimes I'll get like almost an electric shock feeling in my hands where the energy's being released. And then other times I don't get that, and then I'll feel it elsewhere. But I always feel amazing after it. It's my little treat to myself every month.
Oh, that's really good. Sometimes I walk away from therapies like that actually feeling like I'm flatlining, like all the energy's been drained out of me. And I think what I'm actually discovering is that that's a normal state. That's how most people feel when they're relaxed. I'm like, oh, okay. So it's an indication to me to slow down sometimes after I've had a bit of therapy like that.
And Rob, my acupuncture guy, he tells me off a lot. He said, "I'm not here to be your crux. Don't if by doing this, don't then go and carry on running at 100 miles an hour." He says a lot. This is to keep you in a good place. But if you just use it so you can push even harder, then you're going to end up being quite ill. So
Mm.
he keeps me grounded with it as well. So it's almost like a little mini therapy session with him. So we get the acupuncture, get to tell him how my world is and everything. So yeah, it's always kind of one of my favourite days actually, because then I do come back to work and then I'm buzzing all day from it. So
Yeah, it sounds like he's a really good guy to know. He's giving you great advice there, isn't he? I think what you've touched upon there is one of the reasons, or at least part of the reason, why I really wanted to have you on the Time to Speak podcast, because you are a fighter, you are full of energy, you go, 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 but there's a strong sense of purpose and a deep reason behind why you work so hard and why you do what you do. And we're definitely going to get onto that. But I think a lot of people won't know about Liberator or what you do in your role as head of transformation. So just for the sake of everybody listening, could you talk to us a little bit about Liberator and how it works and what you do there?
So Liberata, as a company, we support both local authorities and private organisations and private companies to deliver everything from managed services, where we can deliver a full end-to-end business process service for a company or an organisation, but equally we provide wraparound services, where we can provide on-demand support, specific niche products like Debt Assist, which we might talk about later. That in a way where we've got the ability to do that across HR, payroll, revenues, benefits, customer services, and multiple other areas. And I think for me personally, I joined Liberator as head of transformation in April 2024. Prior to that, I'd been in local government for 25 years. So there's a bit of a synergy which will make sense shortly, where I sort of fell into local government. I started at Dudley Council when I was 16 years old on a YTS. That kind of landed me in the revenues and benefits world, where you first start to realise actually how different people's lives are. So that once you get into that world, it's really difficult to escape it. And I ended up doing 25 years within that revenues and benefits space, predominantly, not fully, but predominantly. But I did move around doing it. So I spent 5 years at Dudley, and then I was freelance for a while, for about 12, 13 years. But I spent a lot of my time at Barnet Council, where I got to sort of improve and grow. And I eventually became the revenues and benefits manager, as well as the financial resilience transformation lead there. And that was where really, my passion for project management in the traditional sense moved more into transformation. And then from there, we were doing some really good things at Barnet, and it's really sad to leave Barnet. It feels like, even though it's not my local borough, it was where I spent 17 years of my life. But this opportunity at Liberator arose where I could continue the work we were doing at Barnet, but it gave me the ability to be able to work with any local authority in the country, or any company in the country that wanted to work with us, as opposed to how do you take something that you really enjoy doing and you feel like is making a difference to people's lives, but you're doing it in one place, and what are the options out there to scale and to deliver it. And there's all sorts of options with that, isn't there? Like you straight away think, well, could I have set up my own business and gone down that route? Well, the season of my life that I'm in right now, I've got 2 young children. I've got a daughter who's 11 and a son who's 9. And that wasn't sort of something I was prepared to do at this stage in my life. And then there was sort of what does it look like to work with multiple companies as opposed to or organisations as opposed to one? So then when I started having conversations with Liberator, I realised that was that opportunity. I could, from a greedy sense, and I know you touched on sort of my crazy brain a little bit, but I get to work with multiple local authorities, which means that actually, I think, we're touching on 1 million residents across everyone that we work with. So if you can create positive change for one resident, you can create it for potentially 1 million. And whereas if you do it in a single place, you sort of restricted to how many residents that borough has. Speaking. So that was how I ended up at Liberator, and it is for the last sort of 18 months now. I have genuinely loved it. It doesn't feel like work. It feels like I'm coming to do what I enjoy doing and what I want to do, and that, it's been good fun.
It sounds like you do a really, really important job. Well, I know that you do, and I know that there's a great sense of purpose behind it, which I think is why you're sort of running at 100 miles an hour. And you mentioned the YTS scheme in Dudley. How did you find yourself there? So take us back to that journey to finally landing a role on that, or a place on that YTS scheme.
Yeah, this could get deep actually. So I'll explain it, and it's actually all of the things I'll explain are positive. So I definitely don't want to mini violin or anything like that. This is the person I am today is because of some of these things. But I was ill as a baby, to the point where I was read the last rites, and my parents were told that I wouldn't survive the night. I was 9 months old then, and that I'll survive that clearly thanks to amazing surgeons and my parents sort of pushing for things. But as a result of that, I had challenges as a child. So I ended up having dislocated lenses in my eyes. So I was partially sighted. If you think of your traditional sort of vision test where you look at the board and you've got the top 3 big letters. I could read the top 3, but I couldn't read anything else. And if I was to read anything, I had to sort of read a book like this. And so it was to the point where even grass was a carpet. It didn't even look like grass. It was just a carpet. So we didn't really realise that until I started primary school. So going through school, it was quite interesting because I couldn't really see. And even though I sat the teachers sat me at the front of the class, I still couldn't see like the blackboard and things like that. But on the flip side of that, what it did mean is I've managed to create this capacity within my brain where I can retain a lot of information, because I couldn't see, so I had to memorize everything that everyone would say, and the teachers would kindly dictate as they were writing on the board. They would sort of say what they were doing, and I would have to sort of retain that and try and capture it. So actually, what was quite a sad situation with the eye situation actually has played a massive part in my ability to retain information. Probably pushes me to use it too much sometimes and burn myself out. But so that kind of led me down this route where school was okay. I sort of, it was the art of networking that I learned at school, because I thought I could get really bullied here. So I tried to really master getting to know people and understanding people and being friends with as many people as possible, because there was a risk that, I was a giant kid who was 6 foot at 11 years old and couldn't see. So I had this whole sort of journey through school where luckily I had a great childhood, an amazing family. School was good, but there was always this sort of, what am I going to do? I was told at 10 years old I'll never be able to drive. I was told, almost laughed at by a specialist, when my mum said he wants to do a paper round to make some money. It's probably a separate conversation for later, but we grew up in what you class as a deprived area. So actually making a bit of money was, even at 11, was something I was really keen to do. Almost laughed at, to say, well, he can't even see the numbers on the door. How is he going to do a paper round? So all of these things sort of created this, and I was like, well, no, I am going to do a paper round, and I'm going to do every paper round I can possibly do. So I ended up doing the morning nationals, the afternoon locals, and then the free paper on the weekend. And the specialist was right. I couldn't see the numbers on the door, so I had to sequence and memorise every street on the estate and the round. And I did that from 11 years old until I left school. So all these things led to this place where I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I couldn't drive, and I didn't think I was going to be able to drive. I thought about moving to London as an adult because they had a tube and I wouldn't need to drive, and that my life might be more normal despite my challenges with my eyes. And because of that, I ended up sort of floating through my GCSEs without really trying, because I wasn't sure what to do. And I think part of that was because back then, this was 1999, sort of the opportunity to do a youth training scheme came up at Dudley Council, and the whole family were like, councils, they're a job for life. They'll look after you, because of your eyes. They will make sure you're okay. And Dudley Council were amazing. When I joined, I couldn't see. They gave me the tools to be able to do my job, to learn my job. So that was how I ended up doing at YTS over going to college. I mean, I thought I wanted to be an accountant at first, which, you've got to know me recently, and that would not have been the right job for me. But so everything happens for a reason, doesn't it? And those challenges actually led to starting the YTS at Dudley, and then discovering a local optician in Dudley, where the specialist there was actually a scientist, and his name was Dr. Audrie, an amazing man. And he gave me hope. I sort of went to see him thinking, well, see if he's got a different view. And within a year of seeing him, I'd had surgery on my eyes. I'd now got 20/20 vision, when I was told that was never going to be something that would ever happen. And so all of these things, you kind of think, you play your own story back, don't you? And think, well, wow, if I hadn't have done that YTS, which I'd probably done out of being safe, and I would never have met Dr. Audrie, would never have had this surgery. Now I can drive. I passed my test within 10 lessons. I was like, I'm not missing this opportunity just in case anything goes wrong. I want to experience it. So this whole process led to me starting at Dudley at 16 on a YTS, but actually ended up changing my entire life, because, meeting Dr. Audrie, having this surgery, doing all of these things. And now I get this amazing situation. Sorry, I'm rambling a bit, so do stop me. But get this amazing situation right now where I wake up completely blind and I go to sleep completely blind. But when I've got my contact lenses and I've got 20/20 vision, so I've got this incredible situation that all happened because I coincided with me starting a YTS scheme in Dudley at 16. I'm pretty sure I've just talked a lot at you there, so I'll pause and get rid.
No, it's just such an incredible story. So when you take your contact lenses out now, you're blind.
Yes, I've got no lenses in my eyes, so it's just, imagine if you blur your background or turn, so you can make out colours and silhouettes, but I couldn't leave the house or get home if I was out and lost my contact lenses. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
It's a good leveler. It's good. It's, I'm lucky. And that's why sometimes I'll drop a contact lens and I'm like, oh, and then I'll sort of think, God, putting these, and then I'd sort of want to slap myself and go, you were told you were never going to be able to drive and never going to be able to see. This is a blessing for me, isn't it? Like the fact that I can walk out of here now and jump in my car and drive somewhere with 20/20 vision, and even funny story. I've had a season ticket at Wolves since I was about 11. I couldn't see. I could literally see. This season that wouldn't be a bad thing, but I don't know if you're into football. Wolves are struggling, but I could only see basically when the action. I was in the South Bank, well, the North Bank when I was 11 to 16, the South Bank when I was 16. I could only see when the ball was coming towards the area that I was stood behind the goal or sat behind the goal. So even that was the emotions that I felt through football for the first sort of 5 years was based on other people's emotions when it was down that end, and obviously I could just about make out this end. But even that, when they fixed my eyes, and at sort of, I think it was 18 when I got my first contact lens put in, and I went to the game, and it was like, wow, this is like insane. It's like a whole different world that I've been coming here for 7 years by this point, and I'm seeing it through completely different eyes now, which was mad. So yeah, that's a bit of a story of where I got to it by 17.
Yeah. I picked up on a few things as you were talking. It's strange because you said, oh, I just kind of like drifted through my GCSEs because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then you said, I kind of landed in YTS because I was playing it safe. And I'm thinking, it's strange that you even use those words and phrases because nothing about your young life speaks to me as somebody who's playing it safe or just drifting. I mean, you actually weren't playing it. You weren't playing it safe, were you? If you're on a paper round and you can barely see on your bike, that's not playing it safe. That's I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, yeah. My mum and dad used to worry a lot. I was out in the dark and I couldn't see. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, probably my relentless nature. When I look back I think part of that probably comes from frustration with
Mm.
myself because actually right now at 43 now I love learning and I love books. I'm a massive book geek and podcasts, books, anything that I can learn from. So I suppose when I look back to that, it was probably frustration with myself that despite the eye situation, I could have done better with my GCSEs and I could have pushed myself harder. But I think the the drive came from sort of the challenging the status quo, which I think literally has led me
Mm.
to where I am today, which is I learned very young. A lot of people just accept what they're told, and there's nothing you can do about that. This is the way. My most frustrating phrase, if anyone ever says it, is, "But this is how we've always done it." And it's like, oh, but I think, yeah, maybe drifting is not the right word. I'm probably got frustration with myself that I could have done better. But actually, if I would have done better, would I have then landed in a YTS scheme, and would I have then met Dr. Hergy, and that led to this all this? But yeah, in terms of the drive side of it, the drive came very young. It was the drive to make sure I made friends and I survived school initially because you don't know you don't really know what it's going to be like. You're a prime target for bullying, so to speak. But and I never did really, barring one incident. So, but the paper M was a challenge. Like the people must have been thinking I was robbing the house at one point because I'd have to when I was first learning to sequence everything, I'd have to walk down people's drives to then sequence the street properly to know. And then very quickly, then I learned. Well, if that was number 2, then I know that 12 houses up is going to be number 24, and sounds obvious, doesn't it? But as an 11-year-old kid in the dark, it was quite a challenge.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about how, you know, if you think about the way that you worked those things out, how that has, at a very young age, formed very strong connections in your brain, and in a way you've created a brain which is high functioning because you had to. Um, it's incredible. I'm thinking about some of the things you've said, and I think I might know what the answer is. Would you have changed anything about your young life leading up to the age of 17?
I don't think. And in hindsight, now I'm doing a job that I love, and I've had several good years of feeling like I have made a really positive impact on people's lives. I'm very content of sort of where my path has landed, and I've worked to get to that path, don't get me wrong, but would I have changed it? Would I have had the ability to change it and push back on a specialist as a kid? Probably. I don't think even. What I would say is it helped me to use that as my fuel. Being told when you're told you can't do something, I do, even to this day, to this week, I do things to challenge that status quo. Something not right. I did a 41-hour fast from Sunday night till yesterday lunchtime because I like to. If I've got this quote that I love from Jim Rohn, and he says, "It's not what you get, it's what you become," and it's always in my brain, and it's. I'm not getting anything. I might get some benefits from fasting, but I'm becoming someone who can turn my mind to do something, and I can push through those hunger pangs, and I can do, and I've done things like that ever since I was a kid, really, to just not lose sight of who that kid was, which was that kid had to fight for everything. So I suppose drifting through GCSEs was definitely the wrong phrase, but that kid had to fight for everything. And you get to a position, where you maybe you're not fighting it, you're working hard and you're doing everything. But so I do random things all the time, like that fast, for example, to really challenge myself.
I'm actually really curious about that. So I was going to say, why did you fast? And I'm thinking, hang on. Did you fast because you wanted to be reminded of the fight, actually? Is that what that is? Or did you fast for health reasons? Or what really was...
It started out, I like to do random. I'm a bit all or nothing, as you probably gathered, but I love training. I go to the gym religiously 3 times. Not crazy. 3 times a week: Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. I get to train with my dad now as well, which is a really nice thing. My dad's at 67 now, fitter than he's been since I've ever known him. So I have sort of that tendency where before that I did the carnivore diet, and I really enjoyed that. And I do things. I think it's always sort of testing my own boundaries, and I've always had this desire to just nothing. I don't. Some people jump out of planes and climb to the top of mountains. So I wouldn't say I'm that I've gone that extreme with it, but things start out as an interest. Fasting, something you just said there. Why did you fast? And I suppose when you're actually doing it, you think, why do we not do this? It's really interesting, isn't it? And we almost so I naturally always do 16/8 just because I don't tend to enjoy breakfast. It's too early, and so I've always naturally done that. And then I really love the Stephen Bartlett podcasts, and they've had a lot of people on recently that have talked about the benefits of giving your body a rest. And so it started out, that piqued my interest, and then you start looking online, and it's really difficult to do a 36-hour fast, which was the intention. But I'd done it back in 2019 without intending to do it. I was really busy. I was doing some consultations, and I was going from library to library to library to library, and I ended up not having breakfast, not having lunch. And then I was driving home, and it was like 9 o'clock at night. And I was thinking, I don't really want to eat now. And I thought, well, actually, if I just go to bed when I get home, I was driving up from London back to the Midlands, and if I just go to bed and then wake up, I'll have fasted for 36 hours without intending to do it. This one was different, because this one I was sat in this room, whilst I was busy at work. The kitchen's just out there, and it's. So it started out as I want to do this to test out these health benefits, and I do feel amazing for it, actually. So I'd give it a try. I'd recommend it. But it then turns into a challenge to myself. Like, what am I going to do? Because for some reason, despite having all of this love for challenge, I love chocolate, and chocolate's like my negative. Right? So I'm like, well, actually, will it help with that if I push myself to I'm going to get these feelings. I do the same. I'll have a cold shower and things like that, because if I can become a person that can stand in a cold shower or can fast like that without thinking about it, and I can overcome those hunger pangs and everything else, then that's going to keep me grounded and keep me in a position where actually, when things do get tough, I know I've got things in my locker that I can achieve these things. And so I'll do random things like that all the time, just to sort of test myself with it. But yeah, it always starts out as an interest, and then it probably, without me even realising, probably does always go back to, I'm terrible when I'm told something can't be done, or there's a reason why people don't do it and everything else. I'm like, well, there's got to be reasons why we can. And then that comes back to that challenge in the status quo, which is being told for 11 years through a specialist there's nothing that can be done, and you'll never be able to see properly, and you'll never be able to have surgery, to then meeting a man who his first words to me were, there's always something that can be done. Let's have a think about it. And he said to me, you know, if we do the surgery and it doesn't work and you have to wear lenses to have the vision you've got now, is that a price you're willing to pay? He said, obviously, any surgery, no matter what it is, any surgery can have an impact. So what does that mean to you? Sort of, and that was a risk I was prepared to take. So I think all of it, everything probably in my life, and my wife would say this, I'm a bit of a nightmare for it. The minute someone says something can't be done, something fires up in me and says, and then and so I think I start things as a bit of a, I think that would be quite handy to do, and then it very quickly becomes a, you don't be told you can't do something, push through that hunger, push it. And I only stopped at 41 hours. I ended up thinking, could I do 72? Because they talk about this 72 hours, but I had an important call yesterday afternoon. I thought, I'm in new territory now. I've never gone to beyond 40 hours before. I'm in an important meeting. I don't want to mess this meeting up, because I was just challenging myself to go a bit longer. So I did pause there, but I feel amazing now. So it's all these things that you think, well, actually, it's just pushing ourselves out of our comfort zones a bit. Really, really can open your eyes to things that you maybe weren't aware of.
I'm just thinking about some of the things you've said there about, pushing yourself. Because I think I do that as well. I like to know how far I can go and what my limits are. As I'm getting older, I'm learning to be a little bit more gentle on my old self. But I think it's a trait within me that I'll never let go of. I'll keep pushing and always seeking to find the next new challenge. Even I can actually have an internal battle with myself, which is saying, no, don't do that. It's not going to be good for you. You're going to be too tired. And then another part of me going, no, you absolutely must, because if you don't evolve, you don't change, you don't learn, you don't grow. And it's a drive. It's an internal drive. And once you've got that, it's very difficult to let go. And then I was thinking, okay, so I can see that in Darren. I can empathize with it. But I also think about the fallout, the people around us. You mentioned your wife there, who have to be incredibly strong to be around people like us who have that drive. And I think it might be the same for your parents as well. They obviously were right there and seeking out the very best routes for you as a child, but it must have taken some strength for them, for your wife, for people around you to support you as you keep pushing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, yeah. So I think it's pushed me into a world where I probably take more risks than I should, and I probably push myself. Well, I do push myself probably at times, not always. I do. As I've got older, I am trying to. My wife, I do. My poor wife. The one advantage. She has to almost put up with this, but also as well, she's almost been the architect of it. So my wife she's got two companies. She does marketing, but she's also a personal growth coach. So actually, my sort of real drive over the last sort of 7-8 years has been through doing personal coaching with her as well. So she's helped me. You know, we're both massive fans of Simon Sinek, and start with why, find your why, and that element. And within her coaching, she does a why discovery workshop where she takes you right back to, which is why some of this stuff's clearer now, because I've done that exercise with her to help understand who I am and what my purpose is, and everything that comes with that. So I do feel for my wife at times, and I do try and make sure that modeling to the kids, like making sure that I want them to see that actually if you really push and you work hard and you get through challenges and barriers, that's a great thing. But I also want them to see that there's a balance and there's a price to pay with not going too far with it. So my wife does a good job of keeping me grounded to an extent, but luckily because I've got a job that I love, and the company, I love the people in my company, and they've created this platform for me to be able to do all of this stuff within my role. I think I've got a better balance now than I've ever had with it. So it is slowing down, and I'm not, I don't work all day and then spend all night thinking about the next thing to do. Or I do genuinely try and create that balance so that when I go in the house, it's family time, and it's not going to interfere with that. But you're right, and for my family, I suppose they, I feel for them, because they always laugh at me, like because I'm so relentless with everything. It's almost like become like a family joke that when are you going to stop, and when are you going to just pause and everything. And then they're probably the opposite way, like they're a lot safer. We grew up in without any money, and like a lot of people do, and we grew up and my parents have worked so hard to get to a point where actually we grew. I think I mentioned debt assist earlier, and it focuses on things like understanding deprivation and socio-demographic data, and understanding actually where we end up. Obviously, where we come from has a big impact on that. So if you think of socio-demographic data, where you could take a borough, let's say Dudley, my borough, where a 1 is the most affluent area and a 10 is the most deprived area. We grew up in a 10. My parents were very young. My mum moved over from Canada. They were very young. We grew up in that area. They both worked full time when we were kids. They worked incredibly hard, and it's took them so long to get to a position where they're in a safe sort of financial position now, and they live in a nice area. We live in normal areas. We're not like living in mansions in the countryside or anything like that. But if you talk about that scale of 1 to 10, we grew up in a 10. I lived in a 10 until I was 17. Then I moved into a 9, whereas now we're in a 2, and my children live in a 2, and they're growing up in a very different world to, like, sort of, even though it's only 4 miles away. It's insane, isn't it? Like, when you think of that, how do you have such, and socio-demographic data is kind of made up with like levels of education, crime, financial, average earnings, things like that, where make up this picture of the area you grow up in. So I feel really lucky that actually I've experienced both worlds, and it's really important when we talk about modelling to the kids that this is where I grew up, and whilst it's not that far away, you can get from here to here, and you can do that. It's been a slog for me to do that, but that's where the family are. So I think they're a lot safer with it. I've probably taken more risks with them. Probably will continue to do that as well. But I think it's important then that the kids go back and see that. So we try and do some volunteering with them, especially around Christmas shelters and things, just to make sure that they know that actually this area is lovely, but we're lucky to be here, and we're lucky to have all of these things, and so I think with all of that, I'm probably gone off piece there, but the family help balance me out. They slow me down. Especially my wife, she does a great job of slowing me down, but also as well, she supports me. Like she's not like, that's a terrible idea. She helps me rationalize things, but she helps me fail quite fast as well. So if something's a terrible idea, she will tell me, like, you might carry on looking at it, but I'm not sure about that one. She has helped me massively with my career as well.
Oh, that's wonderful to know. It's great to know. In there, actually, you mentioned Simon Sinek and why, and you also mentioned your parents and the hardship that you went through at a young age. I think it's really interesting for me to hear you say, oh, now I'm in a 2 and my children are growing up in a 2, but I do want them to know what it's like to be a 10. I think that's very important too, in terms of balance and perspective. But going back to this strong sense of why, I think this is why you created Debt Assist.
Yeah.
And
well, Debt Assist as it is today, yeah. Obviously, it was different when we were at Barney, but yeah, I can explain on that. But yeah.
So why don't you explain that for me then? Or at least for the listeners to understand where Debt Assist came from, the personal stories behind that, because I think obviously your own life story is connected with that. Because I think, why would your brain work so hard to find that solution and help so many people in the way that it has?
Yeah, so definitely. I think the why's been there throughout, but I actually only really figured it out. For anyone that has listened to Simon Sinek or read the book, highly recommend it. If he's just some great podcasts as well. So I wanted to sort of understand what was this thing that was holding me back from leaving local government when I've got this crazy brain that really wants to go and do transformation, and then that sort of morphed into transformation within local government. But I think there's been scenarios through, revenues and benefits. For anyone that doesn't know, it's focused around sort of supporting people on benefits, predominantly housing benefit and council tax support. I used to be responsible for council tax, business rates, benefits, and the debt that's associated with that as well along with welfare provision. And people are struggling, and there's we saw from the latest budget that it feels like sometimes the answer is we're going to give more money, but actually that's just putting plasters over poor infrastructure, isn't it? And what I started to realise at a very young age, I think in 2007 I was responsible for something called discretionary housing payments, where this was like discretionary support above and beyond what a means tested benefit would give someone. And for some people applying, it was like, wow, they've got the best Sky package to smoke 40 cigarettes a day. Come on, we can help reprioritise. What's your priorities here? Because actually you're spending more than what I even have. So, that you are not a person that I would sort of see in that position. But actually, can we help with that? But then you saw on the other side, actually, people struggling, and just the sheer complexity of everything. It's and I can say this from experience. I left Dudley after 5 years, and even by the end of 5 years, we still had desk aids. So if you've been in a job for 5 years and you need a desk aid, that tells you that the setup is too complicated, doesn't it? And it's and it still is to this day. And what we see, and where sort of debt systems we know it today, and where it started at Barnet was we went through COVID, my career has been littered with trying to help people who have got major challenges. Some people have lost their partner, and then suddenly they've got children, and they're facing eviction, and there's all of these things, and you think we all have a role to play for ourselves to get ourselves out, but actually you don't know what you don't know, and sometimes things are really unnecessarily overly complicated. So that's sort of constantly been there ever since 2007, and I've thought about, well, there's got to be a way we can try and join the dots between all of this, between debt and between people struggling and helping people. And I was really lucky. I had such amazing leaders at Barnet and that who believed in me, which gave me confidence as well. So as we came through COVID, there was business grants, which most people with businesses will be fondly familiar with, and then there was energy rebates, and then we headed straight into the cost of living crisis, as it was termed. And you've got this massive picture where there's billions and billions of pounds of debt, and it's growing exponentially. And then you've got a wider story where, and there's a company called Policy and Practice that talk about this really well, where this year it's been reported there's £24 billion unclaimed in benefits and discounts. When I first started looking at this in Barnet, I think that number was between 12 and 15 billion, and then it rose to 18 billion, 21 billion, 23 billion. So it has slowed, the trend is slowing, so you can see that positive change is happening. But the latest number is 24 billion, and when you look at like reports across the major sort of local government, central government, utilities, housing associations, financial services, the number of debt that's reported at least is in and around 85 billion now. So you've got 85 billion of debt, then you've got 24 billion of unclaimed benefits and discounts. So before we think about giving people more money, why don't we fix the infrastructure of why aren't the benefits that are already there being claimed by a lot of people, and how can we create a journey that we've got debts, we have to pay our debts, but are you not paying your debt because you're choosing not to pay it, or are you not paying your debt because you've buried it because you don't know what to do? You can't pay £10 if you don't have any money, can you? And that was kind of where we started with Barnet, where we integrated sort of the debt process with what are the main reasons? Law of cause and effect, isn't it? Debt's a byproduct or an effect of a cause. What's the cause? And actually, can we redefine our processes to focus on what that cause is, and how do we address that? So, with debt, you could say it could be reckless spending like that. So is it financial awareness or literacy? But the likelihood is we've all got an element of that. But what the likelihood is you're either not maximising your income or you have fallen into a precarious position with debt. So actually, within a debt journey, can we build something that says, well, first and foremost, can we maximise your income? Are you claiming, if there's 24 billion unclaimed, are you claiming everything that you're eligible for? A lot of people think that they can't get benefits because their partner works, as a key example. My mum included, actually. So people just assume, so then they don't claim these benefits that are available, and then, well, before you know it, they're then defaulting on council tax or other debt types because, key priorities, you keep the roof over your head, you keep the food on your kids' tables, and then you try and figure out what you've got to do thereafter. So why don't we integrate that all into one holistic picture where we join all the dots between that? So listen, you do owe this money. However, did you know there's £24 billion unclaimed in benefits? And we've got a calculator that can help you to firstly identify benefits and discounts, including things like low income water tariffs, if you're on a low income from your utility company, things like that. But also as well, let's get you some FCA accredited debt support. So are you able to, if you can't maximise your income through benefits, are you able to maximise your income through getting a handle on that debt? Are you paying £200-300 a month in interest that might be £100 a month? Well, that's your council tax payment that you're not managing to pay now. Well, that's a shopping bill taken care of for your kids, and it really started to grow at a rapid rate. So as I started to, naturally, as you start to think about these things and you start to build what that picture looks like, and then you start working with your data. And there was an amazing data guy at Barnet called Matt. He really helped me to bring it to life, and we were just backed from the leadership team straight away. So I have a massive debt of gratitude to Barnet Council because they backed me, they believed in me, and then they said, right, okay, go and do it. And it paid off straight away. We talking of debt, we reduced outstanding debt by 2.1 million in the first 9 months. But the bigger thing of that now is, as of last month, it's around £16 million in additional benefits that have been identified through the calculator in Barnet. Now, that's got, the knock-on impact of that is huge, isn't it? Firstly, you've got to make sure that they claim those benefits. And even if you said half the people completed it blank to test it, even if you said it was 8 million, which it would be more than that, £8 million coming back into a local economy, it's not just going to help us collect our council tax that's due. It's going to support local businesses that are struggling with business rates and all of the costs, because we know the online world has taken over from that. So can we bring money? How do you bring money back into the local economy? Money that's already on the table, just not being taken. How do we bring all that back into the local economy to support residents, which then has support for local businesses, but also as well, hopefully eases the burden on NHS. We know the challenge of mental health, physical health with poverty, especially needless poverty. So actually, if we're helping families to maximise their income, as children not growing up in needless poverty, I think one of the stats around marital breakdown, financial stress is like listed in the top 5 of those as well. So when you think longer term, you zoom out and you think, how many families might not have broken down because of financial pressure and everything else. And that was kind of the start of the journey at Barnet. And then it really was given the opportunity where I started talking to Liberator, and I said, well, you've got this desire to make this a national service that can support multiple local authorities, and therefore I've got a dream to support over 1 million families, right? And that, I think, without being a famous influencer, or I'm just a normal guy, right, that grew up in a deprived area and has had some luck in the challenges that he's faced, and I genuinely believe that we can do that. And I think to do that, then it was how do you take this beyond Barnet? How can you expand? And that was where the opportunity to go to Liberator. Liberator had a debt platform, and they've invested so heavily. And again, when you talk about gratitude to Barnet, gratitude to Liberator, because Liberator have invested really heavily in a platform that can then deliver this. They've backed it, they've believed in it, they've supported it, and now it's live, and it's making a difference to people's lives, and it's now in a position where it can be rolled out to any local authority or company that deals with debt, where it is designed to address the root cause of why people are struggling. Wow. And the rest will fall in place, won't it? If I help you maximise your income, law of reciprocity will probably kick in, where you're like, actually, Darren really helped me, or Barnet Council really helped me. I am going to prioritise working with Barnet and engaging with Barnet Council. I'm not going to ignore them anymore. You know, suddenly the children are growing up in a different environment. There's less financial stress, and we all have financial stress even now. Like, we all have financial pressures, and we all know what that impact on our lives is. How do we help people that are struggling? And there's a way to use that problem, which is debt, to support them to hopefully create positive outcomes. And that's why I love what I do, because I'm getting to live that now, and it's like I couldn't ask for better, really.
I can really hear why you love what you do. I mean, it's very clear to me that you've got that strong vision, and it's great to have that dream of helping 1 million people through Debt Assist. And yeah, all kudos to Liberator. I feel I know even more about Liberator now from what you've just said, and it's actually pushed me to think about exploring more about all of the things that they do. It kind of leads me on to talking to you about your voice, and you actually came to do sessions with me because you want to continue to get the message out there. And I know it's important to you that the message lands with the people that you speak to, whether that's you pitching Debt Assist to a room of people, or whether it's you at an event speaking and talking about why you would keep fighting for a better life for people in general. But can you tell me a little bit about where you're coming from with that? Like, why come to somebody like me? Like, I think I know why, but I think it's important for other people to understand why speaking and communication is important to you, because there will be other people in a similar position to you. They've got a strong sense of purpose. They've got a drive to change people, change lives. When they speak, they want their audience to leave feeling changed. And so it's important for them to hear about you and your reasons behind having a message that makes sense.
Yes, there's a few reasons actually. So, as you can probably tell, I talk a lot. I've always been quite fast-paced talking, and going back to that brain thing where I feel like I've always got so much information in my head that sometimes I blur.
Yeah.
So, where I wanted to get to is I've presented at conferences over the last few years, and I've really enjoyed it, and I love that sort of the buzz you get from it. And I've always had really great feedback, and it's really nice when people seek you out afterwards and say. But I always got the sense that the feedback was great because people felt enthused because of the passion and the sort of desire behind it. But I always came close to running over, and I always felt like I overemphasized certain things and talked too much when I could have stopped. And obviously, as I've progressed in my career, I started to notice this, that the way you talk to one audience needs to be different to the way you talk to another one. If you're talking to a room of busy execs trying to sell in an idea to get their back into, that it's a different conversation to have, as opposed to standing on stage and trying to get people to buy into a movement or an idea, or build that sort of a passion and excitement. I think will get you to a certain point, but actually, if you lose the room that you're trying to engage with, then you might miss the opportunity just by doing that. And that was it really. It was how do I make sure that I can get the same message to a C-suite room as I can to an audience where I want them to hopefully buy into the journey. And it's a very different conversation, isn't it, of what you're trying to get, because especially if you're trying to create something that ultimately has to be a commercial operation as well, it's a real challenge to create, and it's something that I struggled with. I would talk too much, or put too much into the slides, too many words, too much clutter, sort of thing. And obviously we can say what we want about social media. I'm quite lucky. My social media the algorithm is perfect. I use Instagram for personal growth and fitness, and then I use X for football and financial sort of learning and things like that. But obviously, the more I've started listening into podcasts, Stephen Bartlett's, for example, I like Modern Wisdom as well. There's a lot of podcasts that I listen to, and you listen to the way people speak. And I've always had this paranoia about my accent. I'm from like Dudley, as people say, and so I've always had this paranoia around that, which I think you've helped me to understand that I should embrace that and not try. I think I spend so much time trying to mask it that I'm potentially losing value in other things that I could be doing. So there's all of these things, and then as you listen to all these people talking on podcasts, they all speak so well and so clearly, and I'm like, oh, I am. If I want to get this message across, I need to up my game here. But you don't know what you don't know, do you? There's things that we've talked about that I now catch myself doing all of the time, but I wasn't even aware of it before. And I've got a long way to go. It's not going to happen overnight, but my diction, I sort of, even if I haven't fully corrected it, I catch myself now, and then I work on it afterwards, and so and really trying to sort of, you've helped me massively retain my level of enthusiasm and passion and excitement, but actually tone it down where it needs to be toned down, and make sure the point lands. And I'd like to think that my chief exec and my chief operating officer have noticed that difference, and I am seeking feedback on that as well. I've definitely seen it myself in my own presentations. When I'm presenting now, I'm a lot happier with what goes into it, but also as well, I used to just put it all on there, and then I'd try and create this presentation from a whereas you've helped me to sort of map out what I want to achieve and then set about creating it.
Yeah, I think there is a thing there about, I talk about it all the time. If you put everything onto a slide and then crowd that slide with loads of content, your audience isn't going to know where to look. Like, should they be listening to you? Should they be reading from the slide? They're not going to read through all of the information on that slide anyway, because there usually isn't time. And then you literally lose them because they're not looking at you or hearing you. And the worst thing of all is if you turn around to read from that slide and then you don't look like the expert, because you don't look like you know what you know, because you have to read it. So there are so many reasons why you would strip it back. So that's one thing. I think for you, it was never about you not being an expert. Excuse me, coughing there. It was about you wanting to give everything. So it's honing that, isn't it? And saying, yes, give all of yourself, but let's cut away the stuff which isn't necessary, so that actually people can really hear the message clearly and hear the important parts, so that they can then make a decision or then feel changed by a thought, a feeling, an emotion, which will then change their behaviors going forward. And that is an art, it is a skill, it takes practice, it takes preparation, it takes time, which is why I have this podcast, Time to Speak, because it's a big bugbear of mine that professionals such as yourself, who have something so important to deliver, forget about the time it takes to prepare and the time you need to gather yourself and make sure that when you do speak, you're delivering something of quality. So I'm really glad that you've had that time with me, and you're able to do that more eloquently now.
I really noticed that as well. So I now monitor if I've had a lot of time to prep for something compared to less. I can really see, I can feel the difference as I'm doing it, but I can really see it. I rush through it. When I haven't prepared, I end up being quite robotic with it. Whereas when I've had time to prepare, I feel like I've got the ability to slow down, and it becomes more impactful, doesn't it? That you can, but it's also massively helped me as a spectator. I've realised, and I'll catch myself that if someone's presenting now, I try and read everything on the slide whilst they're talking. So now I'm trying to focus on them, just also almost out of how would I hope they would
Yeah.
respond to me. And
Yeah.
you don't even think about that unless you start this process where this just, you don't know what you don't know, do you? And this is
Mm.
it. And now I do know. I catch myself multiple times a day where I slow down or pause,
Mm.
block out more time. Like before a call, meeting culture can be, in any business, you run from meeting to meeting to meeting. Well, actually, how much more productive or beneficial could that meeting be if you blocked out the half an hour before it to
Yeah.
focus on what are the outcomes we're looking to achieve? How much time might you save by being more sort of strategic and targeted in our approach to the meetings or to the
Mm.
presentations? And it's honestly, I can't tell you how much it's helped me. It's
Oh.
massively.
I think it's about awareness as well, isn't it? Just focusing on this for a little bit has really built your awareness around it. And if you're more aware about your own communication style and the communication style of others, I think you're 90% there, because that's when you start to really think about it, don't you? And really acknowledge areas where you could improve or change. Just want to pick up as well about, you mentioned about your accent, and I've said to you I love your accent, and it's really important. Like I would tell any speaker to keep their accent, and that's coming from an actor who can lose their accent and go straight into RP. Even in the performing arts industry, we would always say your accent is your gold. It's where you're from. It's your identity, and it's so important. And people do get confused. They think good diction is taking away the accent and the dialect. It's not. It's keeping it and knowing how to speak well, paying attention to those vowels and consonants and key sounds, which means everyone can still understand you whilst maintaining your accent. It's so important that you keep it. I love your accent, so you must keep it. I want to ask you something else, because I think we could talk for hours, and I want to make sure I've got some cool questions in there which get to your nitty gritty a little bit more. I'm wondering if you've ever said anything that you regret.
I did this last week, and I've I'm usually good at not beating myself up. I'm usually good at saying, okay, well, you can't change it now, just crack on. I presented an award for Tameside Council last week, and I loved it. They did a staff awards called Strive, and it was amazing. Such a good day, good afternoon. It was brilliant, and I caught myself on. I had something I wanted to say, and I didn't say it. And then I've thought, and the reason I didn't say it is I stood there going, "It's not about you. You don't need to say anything. You just need to present the award." And this was last Thursday, I think it was last Thursday, and I was presenting the support award. So it was about members of Tameside staff who have gone above and beyond, and they're doing amazing things. So in my head, I wanted to say, "You're all completely inspiring, and the residents and communities of Tameside are lucky to have you." That was what was naturally in my head as the host was sort of reading out the names and saying what they'd done. And then I was like, "It's not about you. You don't need to say that. You just need to say, and the winner is." And so I ended up just saying, "And the winner is," and presented it. And I beat myself up so much on the way back and thereafter, because I thought, was it the right thing to do? Because it's not about me, and I didn't want to hoard the
Mm.
mic, but actually, I've beat myself up, because those people are changing people's lives.
Mm.
And saying a line that recognises, actually, I'm genuinely inspired. Some of the stories were amazing, and so I beat myself up a lot about that. And like, even to this point, it's just a lesson for next time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's a very recent example.
Yeah, there's stuff in there. First of all, I want to congratulate you on being so conscientious and thinking it's not about me. You're right. It's as speakers, when we get on stage, it's actually never about us. It's about the audience. And so 10 out of 10 for thinking that way. And I'm guessing now you've thought about it and thought, yeah, it wasn't about me, but they would have benefited from me saying something. And you've learned. I mean, we continue to learn all the time, don't we, about how to communicate better and how to connect, and I'm sure they all still felt really valued and respected by you completely. But now, for next time, oh yeah, it's definitely not about me, but it will be good for them to hear me just say a few things. And we all live and learn, don't we?
On the original question as well, there's a great book, isn't there? I think you've read it as well, The Chimp Paradox.
Yeah.
It's an amazing book, but uh, the good thing about reading that book, I read it and listened to it because it's one of the best books you can ever read. But I catch my chimp now, so I sort of, even mid chimp, I'm like, and then I'll sort of stop but there is still times where I've let my chimp or my emotions. So for anyone that doesn't know, breaks the brain down into human, computer, and chimp. And your chimp is what we all get with road rage, or when we feel like something unjust has happened, and actually boxing your chimp, as he talks about in the book, is exactly that, isn't it? So sometimes, like, I think going back to your point earlier about awareness, isn't it? Of I'm now aware when my chimp is presenting himself or herself, and I try and capture it. So there is a lot of times where, I'll reflect on something afterwards, because it's my role in a transformation role. It's my role to make sure that people experience change in different ways. So whilst I get frustrated when I hear the phrase, we've always done it this way, we have to remember on that sort of change curve or bell curve that people are at different stages with all of that. So sometimes when I'm communicating, and especially talking to you about it, I now catch myself in that communication phase where I think, actually, I have to remember that person's in a different place to me, and I've just communicated in a way that I expect them to be on the same page, and they might be at some point, but they're not working in a change environment all the time. And so all of these things of capturing yourself, but yeah, that Tameside one. So if anyone from Tameside does listen to it, I am sorry for not actually telling you how inspired I was by what you're doing. So yeah, but that's the one that's a really recent one.
You're, I mean, everyone listening will agree with me. You're clearly a people person. You love to talk, you love to chat, you care deeply about others. What does human connection mean to you on a personal level?
Me and my wife talk about this all the time. So I'm a massive extrovert. I recharge, and it's made me realise that working from home's got so many benefits, and I love it. And I'm at home and I see the kids a lot. I feel so much more energised when I've been to the office, or when I've last Thursday going to Tameside, or tomorrow we've got an event in London, and I come back from that energised for days or weeks. My wife, we think we've figured out she's an extroverted introvert. So actually, everyone thinks she's an extrovert, but she's massively introverted, and she's exhausted. So we could experience the same event, and I would come back like Energizer Bunny, really excited and sort of really energized from it, and she would be exhausted the next day from it. And it's a really sort of good leveler to understand, actually, that some of us, I love nothing more than walking into a room and getting to know people, and understanding what their passions, and we naturally all say, don't we, oh, what do you do? Well, actually, the better question is, what is it that's led you to do what you do? And because it's a better conversation, isn't it? But I've always loved being around people. It's in all scenarios as well, both from trying to help people, but also as well just to have fun with people, and just let your hair down. Like, I've got a really good group of friends, and we probably don't see each other enough, actually. But when we do, it's amazing, and I'm seeing them next weekend, and that'll be another thing where actually then, apart from the potential hangover, I feel great for ages afterwards, and it's just social connection. And I've realised it more since COVID, being at home a lot. It probably has a bigger impact on me than I realise. And I have that session away, and then I'm like, I'm great again, and I can go, and again I can go for a period of time without it then, but I definitely need it. And I have noticed when I've gone for like a month, let's say, without seeing anyone, I just naturally just dip without, and I didn't really realise that until a few years ago.
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about there is actually connection in person, like physically being around people. So it's not social media, it's not just sending a WhatsApp note or an email to somebody that you care about, or actually even colleagues, people that you work with. That's all well and good. but actually for you, you feed off that in-person interaction, which is just so baseline human, isn't it? I'm very much like your wife, by the way. So everyone thinks that I am really confident and extroverted, but I am an introvert, and I need quiet time to recover and be alone to recharge my batteries. And it's really cool to hear that you're the opposite, that charging your batteries is actually being with other people and feeling their energy. That's just wonderful to hear and makes a lot of sense.
And that
Now,
kind of feeds into about, like, when we talk about purpose and things. I'm not in that. We talked about seasons of life, didn't we? My season of life now is my family and my work, and But as I get older, it will be, my purpose will definitely be around community. Like, I think I'm torn on this because in transformation, naturally, I'm looking at AI and how it can improve what we do and support us to live a better life. But my purpose, definitely, I've got this sense of community. And are we losing community? You think about community from when we were kids compared to even today. Where might that be? So I think that the definite next sort of shift, maybe in the next season of my life, maybe when the kids don't need me as much, will be around actually what can we do to restore that community presence and bring that in. So there's something I'm actually excited about. I don't know what that will look like, but it's 100% something that, and it'll probably be the thing that I do. I don't think I'll ever retire. I think my retirement will probably be running some sort of community sort of setup. Like I said, I haven't put enough thought into know what that looks like, but that's definitely where I see myself as I get older.
yeah, I can see you doing that as well. I think you'll always be part of a community, and I'm sure if you're involved, it will be a good, healthy, happy one that is always striving to improve and grow and evolve. So I hope you get there. I think you will. Of course you will, because you never give up. You constantly moving towards the next thing, which is absolutely wonderful. Darren Smith, thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
I've really loved it, but honestly, Audrey, thank you, because you've opened my eyes up to things that I genuinely don't think I would have ever even thought about. So I've loved working with you over the last couple of months, and I feel like it's going to really, really help me with what I'm trying to achieve. So honestly, I can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Darren. That's really nice. Well, that was the incredible Darren Smith. Wow. He is a man on a mission and with a great sense of purpose and doing good in this world, and totally from the heart. I feel really privileged to have spoken with him today and for him to have given up that time to speak with me, and very lucky to have worked with him to help him find his voice. It's incredible. Yes, so I hope you enjoyed that episode, and I look forward to you catching me on the next one with my next guest. See you soon. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Time to Speak. If you'd like to listen to more, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and the podcast page on my website, audriewoodhouse.com. This podcast is brought to you by Audrie Woodhouse Honestly Speaking Limited, and it is an Actors Actuality production. See you soon.